The 1st of August. Thank you for joining us. I'm Devin Whiting, and these are our top stories. Today, the Korean capital will be just about the hottest place in the country. We're looking at highs not seen since 1994, so everyone's advised to stay hydrated and not spend too much time outdoors. The South and North Korean militaries reach an agreement in principle to work towards disarming some troops on the border. Reducing military tensions was part of the deal struck at the Inter-Korean Summit earlier this year. And South Korean Foreign Minister KangKyung-wha is in Singapore for the ASEAN Regional Forum. There's a chance she'll meet with her counterpart from North Korea, and there could even be a three-way meeting with the U.S. Yesterday here in Seoul was the second hottest day in 24 years. It got up to 38.3 degrees Celsius. But today is probably going to be even hotter with a high of 39 degrees. Our weathercaster Lee Ji-hyun is now at Gwanghwamun Square in downtown Seoul, a place normally filled with tourists and office workers. Ji-hyun, thank you for braving the heat out there for us. How are you coping, and what are we looking at today heat-wise?
Good morning, Devin. Well, you're very lucky to be in the air-conditioned studio today. It is just so hot. It's just after 10 a.m., but temperatures have already soared to 34 degrees Celsius. And as you mentioned, we are expecting some all-time records high, getting up to 39 degrees Celsius here in the capital under blazing sunshine with high humidity. So the heat will be quite unbearable throughout the day. I mean, 39 degrees Celsius is not at the normal temperatures we usually see in Seoul, so be prepared once again. Now, it's forecast to be very high with an expected daytime highs of 39 degrees Celsius, and that's much higher than we often see in Seoul, so be prepared for that once again. But not only Seoul, but most parts of the country will see boiling heat, and you might want to add a couple of degrees to the actual digits due to the blazing sunshine and high humidity. Heatwave warnings are in place across much of the country. Uncomfortable heat during the day lingers through the night, causing people to wake up at least a couple of times to turn the AC on. And as for today's highs in Seoul and Chuncheon will reach 39 degrees Celsius. Daegu and Gwangju will top out at 38 degrees. Many are asking me if the heat will ease up. But sorry, this heat will continue to bake the nation for the time being. So be sure to drink plenty of water. You'll need to wear sunglasses and wear a good amount of sunblock to protect yourself from this strong sunshine. That's all for me at this hour.
All right, Jian, take care of yourself out there, and we'll talk again at about 12 o'clock. Now, with air conditioners blasting this summer, electricity bills are soaring. That's a big worry for a lot of people. Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon has called on the government to try and find ways to bring those bills down. He's also reminding people to take health precautions. This heat is dangerous, and he wants local governments to help vulnerable people like senior citizens. Cha Sang-mi reports.
The South Korean government is continuing its efforts to respond to the extreme heat wave, which is forecast to continue till the end of August. With the air conditioning on, the heat's caused electricity bills to soar. And in Tuesday's cabinet meeting, Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon called on the Energy Ministry to find ways to ease people's concerns on that front.
The longer the heat wave continues, the longer we spend with the air conditioning on, which leads to worryingly high electricity bills. This heat wave qualifies as a natural disaster, so I urge the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy to look into ways to show some consideration to the people when it comes to the cost of electricity.
Prime Minister Lee also asked the ministry to make sure to stabilize electricity supplies this week when power demand will most likely surge at the end of vacation season. Lee said despite multiple measures the government has been taking, the heat has claimed 27 lives, and both farmers and consumers are suffering from the loss of livestock and crops.
The government is working on changing the law so that the heat wave is regarded as a natural disaster, but we ought to respond to the heat wave even before the law is passed.
He urged people to take extra care of themselves in the heat, especially senior citizens who don't have air conditioning, also farmers, fishermen, and builders who work outside in the heat. Local governments, he said, should help. On Tuesday, the Prime Minister himself paid a visit to a family on a livestock farm in Gyeonggi-do Province to console them and to check on the situation on the ground. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
In other news, generals from South and North Korea met Tuesday to look at ways to reduce tensions on the border. This was something the leaders agreed to do at the Inter-Korean summit back in April. Both sides say the talks went well, and they reached some agreements in principle to draw down some forces at the joint security area. Park Ji-won reports.
The two Koreas reached a mutual understanding on the principle of disarming the joint security area in the DMZ, the joint recovery of war remains in the DMZ, and the withdrawal of troops at some guard posts as a pilot program. South Korea's defense ministry explained the mutual understanding is sort of a broad sense of agreements in principle, and the two sides will work on specific and detailed implementations in later talks. Tuesday's general-level inter-Korean military talks started 10 a.m. and ended at around 6:30 p.m. Korea time at the border village of Panmunjom. The two sides didn't adopt a joint communique, yet both sides said the talks had gone well.
I think our talks were done in an earnest and sincere manner, as the items on the agenda are all very important and can become substantial measures for easing inter-Korean military tensions and building trust. I think the two Korea's militaries can play a significant role in establishing perpetual peace on the Korean peninsula if the two sides continue to study and work on implementing the agenda items.
We fully understood the South's views, and I think our views have been fully delivered to the South. In that regard, the talks were very productive and brought joy to people in both Koreas. I think if we continue to have this attitude and stance of caring and helping each other, many problems will be solved. All items we discussed have historical significance in inter-Korean relations.
During the talks, the South Korean delegation also invited the North to this year's Seoul Defense Dialogue, scheduled to take place from September 12th to September 14th in Seoul. This is the second time this year the delegations meet for talks on Tuesday, with the first meeting taking place in mid-June. At that time, the two sides agreed to restore military communication channels on the western and eastern sides of the peninsula, with the western military communication channel being completely restored earlier this month. And for now, the two sides said they do not have any specific plans for another round of military talks soon. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
South Korea's Vice Minister of Unification, Chun Hae-sung, is heading north of the border today to visit Mt.Kumgang, where reunions will be held this month for families separated by the Korean War. The Vice Minister will be checking progress on the renovations underway at the reunion venue. Mt.Kumgang used to be a destination for tourists from South Korea until one of them was shot dead 10 years ago. The North wants the tours to resume, and yesterday urged Seoul to work towards that. But the Unification Ministry says Chun's visit has nothing to do with tourism. Meanwhile, the two Koreas are deciding which of their citizens will attend the family reunions. They're scheduled to exchange the final lists this Saturday. South Korean Foreign Minister KangKyung-wha is in Singapore for the ASEAN Regional Forum, and on the sidelines, it's possible that she'll meet with her counterpart from North Korea. Kang told reporters when she arrived, though, that no schedule has been set for that meeting. Her week-long visit to Singapore will focus on South Korea's ties with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations and the Korean peace process, which includes declaring a formal end to the Korean War. It's been 11 years since the foreign ministers of South and North have sat down for talks. But there's also the possibility of trilateral talks with the U.S., since Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will be in Singapore at the same time. Dialogue, meanwhile, between Japan and Russia. They held their third 2+2 meeting on Tuesday, involving their ministers of foreign affairs and defense. They focused on resolving the territorial dispute over the Kuril Islands, which Russia claimed at the end of World War II. On North Korea, both sides agreed that the regime needs to get rid of its nuclear weapons. Kim Yo-sun tells us more.
The foreign and defense ministers of Japan and Russia met in Moscow on Tuesday to discuss issues of common interest.
Russia is an important neighbor, and we hope that by maintaining dialogue and cooperation, it will lead to the moment when hazardous situations and tensions don't arise.
Japan and Russia discussed using economic cooperation to resolve an ongoing dispute over 4 Pacific islands, which Russia calls the Kuril Islands and Japan calls the Northern Territories.
The business ventures by Japanese entrepreneurs with the participation of Russian partners will take place within the framework of the preparation of joint economic projects on the Southern Kuril Islands on August 16th through 20th this year. Following the results of this business venture, we will arrange the dates of the next round of consultations on joint economic projects within the framework of work on the peace treaty.
During the talks, Tokyo also explained that the Japanese missile defense system, including the Aegis Ashore, is not a threat to Russia, but purely a defensive system. Japan and Russia also touched upon the North Korean nuclear issue, agreeing to cooperate closely to achieve their common goal of denuclearizing the Korean peninsula. The possibility of a summit meeting between President Vladimir Putin and Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in September on the sidelines of the Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok was also discussed, and the two countries agreed on an annual ministerial level 2+2 meeting. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
In the United States, Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross says the trade dispute with China is a lot like going on a diet, but he's still optimistic that the U.S. can cope. Another round of U.S. tariffs is about to take effect, but the two sides are reportedly looking to restart talks and defuse the conflict. Lee Seung-jae has the details.
U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross says the U.S. can deal with the pain of a trade dispute with China because of the strength of the American economy. Speaking at an event in Washington hosted by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce on Monday, Ross says it makes more sense to take an aggressive stance toward China when the U.S. economy is doing well, citing an unemployment rate that's hovering around its lowest level since 2000. The Commerce Secretary also compared the current trade dispute to the start of a diet, saying that it's no fun in the beginning, maybe a little bit painful, but at the end of the day, you're kind of happy with the end result. His comments are the latest sign that the Trump administration doesn't intend to back down from the trade dispute with China, which experts warn could undercut growth in the world's two largest economies. However, according to sources, the two countries are trying to restart talks aimed at avoiding a full-blown trade war. They say that U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and Chinese Vice Premier Liu He are having private talks as they look for ways to re-engage in negotiations. They also cautioned that a specific timetable, the issues to be discussed, and the format for talks aren't finalized, but added there was agreement among the principals that more discussions need to be in place. The next wave of U.S. tariffs is set to begin on Wednesday, with the possibility of another $16 billion of Chinese imports being slapped with tariffs. However, the implementation of the tariffs could be delayed for weeks as the administration works out the details of which products it will target. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Facebook has removed 32 accounts and pages posting political messages in a way it thinks is suspicious. The company says whoever was running the pages went to great lengths to cover their tracks. For more on this and other news from around the world, we turn to our Oh Soo-young in the news center. So, Soo-young, Facebook is shutting all this down ahead of the U.S. midterm elections.
That's right, Devon. Facebook removed the accounts on Tuesday, citing coordinated, inauthentic behaviour that supports certain political causes in America. And these included groups from both the right and left of the political spectrum, endorsing white supremacy on one side and the shutdown of the immigration agency on the other. The users behind the accounts had accrued some 290,000 followers and concealed their locations and identities by using virtual private networks. They also paid third parties for ads on Facebook and Instagram. And what was unsettling about these activities for some observers was that they mirrored alleged Russian attempts to disrupt the US presidential elections 2 years ago. Also, the timing of these recent events and content posted by these groups raises concerns due to the impending midterm elections in the US. Facebook has said it would continue investigations and will share further findings with Congress and relevant authorities. Iranian officials appear to have dismissed US President Donald Trump's rather spontaneous offer to meet amid their deteriorating ties. And this comes after Trump remarked on Monday that he would certainly meet with anyone from Tehran at any time without preconditions. His words struck a different tone from just a week before when he traded insults with Iranian leader Hassan Rouhani. However, Tehran officials and experts have expressed skepticism, deeming the offer unreliable, humiliating, and even worthless after Washington withdrew from their 2015 deal to reduce sanctions on Iran. President Hassan Rouhani himself said in an official statement Tuesday that pulling out of the landmark deal had been illegal and that the ball was in Europe's court when it comes to maintaining relations with Tehran. A plane has crashed near an airport in Mexico shortly after takeoff. Everyone on the plane survived, but some 85 people were injured. Mexican authorities confirmed Tuesday local time that an Aeromexico plane heading from Durango to the capital fell to the ground at around 4 p.m., just 10 kilometers away from the airport that it took off from. 97 passengers and 4 crew members were aboard the plane at the time. Officials say emergency services rushed to the scene and healthcare authorities are now on full alert to treat the injured. Police dogs in Switzerland were sporting heat-proof shoes on Tuesday as global temperatures rose to record highs this week. Police based in Zurich shared photos dubbed Operation Hot Dogs on their Facebook page, showing their canine companions wearing the shoes to protect their paws from the burning asphalt on the streets, which officers say could heat up to 55 degrees Celsius. Swiss authorities have been encouraging the locals to take special care of their dogs amid a prolonged heatwave, and these recommended measures include giving their dogs extra water, taking walks in the shade, and ensuring that their dogs don't exert themselves under the sweltering conditions.
South Korea's consumer prices have risen by more than 1% for a 10th straight month. Statistics Korea says the consumer price index in July rose 1.5% on year on the back of higher global oil prices and agricultural products. The price of petroleum goods rose more than 12%, driving up consumer prices overall by 0.5%. Agricultural goods prices went up 4.2% on the back of higher red pepper and rice prices. Core inflation, which excludes energy and food prices, rose 1%. On Tuesday, there was a ceremony held in Glendale, California, just outside Los Angeles, to mark 5 years since a statue was erected there to honor the Korean victims of Japan's sexual slavery during World War II. The statue was the first such memorial set up on America's West Coast. The Korean American Forum of California said people gathered at the Glendale Monument to recall the meaning of the statue, dedicated to the so-called comfort women and to reflect on a dark period in Korea's history. The statue has faced strong opposition from Japan, which has tried to bring it down through letters, visits by Japanese politicians, and a lawsuit that went to the U.S. Supreme Court. BMW Korea and its official dealer Deutsche Motors are facing a lawsuit here in Korea following a series of engine fires. BMW has recalled the model in question, but consumers still aren't satisfied. Choi Si-young has this report.
BMW Korea has recalled more than 100,000 vehicles of 42 different models of a faulty component prone to cause a fire. A group of Korean consumers filed a complaint at the Seoul Central District Court against BMW Korea and its official dealership Deutsche Motors. They said in a petition that the recall doesn't address the fire risk because the car maker promises to replace the faulty part only if they are found to be defective. They also expressed worries over a potential delay in the process of recalling more than 100,000 cars. They are seeking around $4,500 each and could ask for more in damages in the litigation process.
Many people are asking me about the lawsuit. I plan to continue filing a complaint week after week. It is likely that a year will pass by until the first ruling comes out.
After the complaint was filed against BMW, more than 1,000 people joined an online cafe to prepare for a lawsuit against the German automaker. And that number is still growing. The fire-prone faulty component called exhaust gas recirculation is also equipped in vehicles sold in other countries. According to BMW Korea, Korea registered the highest number of faulty cars due to the abnormal weather conditions these days. But experts differ.
In automobile manufacturing, hardware like an EGR component goes with software that sends commands. This software is designed differently by region and country. The software may be the error in this case.
When asked for comment on the expert's view, BMW Korea said the software is the same as the European ones and that there is no software malfunction. Choi Si-young, Arirang News.
It's been 1 month since the South Korean government started enforcing a law limiting the work week to 52 hours. It used to be 68. It doesn't apply to all companies yet, only those public and private with 300 or more employees. There are a lot of opinions about what effect, if any, that it's had both on businesses and their employees. Our Ko Ryun-hee takes a closer look.
Here at a large cable manufacturing company in Anyang, south of Seoul, employees get ready to leave work every day at 5:20 p.m. In big companies, some employees like Lee Seung-ho are making the most of the 52-hour working week.
Now that I have more time, I looked for new activities I can do after work. Recently, I've become interested in table tennis.
The biggest change for people who work at big firms is a better work-life balance. This has also helped leisure businesses, which are benefiting from an increase of customers.
I've seen more office workers coming in after work since July. I think it's because they can leave work earlier. I've seen 4 to 5 new people coming into play per week.
Although the new system might have helped big companies and their workers, it's quite a different story for smaller firms. Many think companies with fewer than 300 people are not affected by reduced working hours, but small and medium-sized businesses say they have their own hardships.
Many large companies use small businesses as subcontractors, so SMEs are directly affected. For instance, some small businesses experienced a decrease in workload due to fewer orders in July. I think this is because many big companies are reluctant to jump into new industries after the reduced working hours.
Meanwhile, for small businesses preparing to implement the new work system in the coming years, a professor of sociology says the government's role is crucial.
For small and medium-sized businesses, it is difficult to keep track of when their employees show up or leave work. The government should provide consulting or funding in regards to this system.
Ko Ryun-hee, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you very much for watching. A lot more updates coming your way at 12 o'clock Korea time. We'll see you then.